Okay, you should all now have gotten the warning about the recording. So let me greet, never stops. Here comes someone else. This is a rule. Whenever you start, someone else immediately comes in. Okay, I'm Scott Giles, and I'm the person asked to facilitate this program. I have been a community minister for the vast majority of my ministerial career. I'm a graduate of Meadville Lombard with a doctorate in ministry, with a strong emphasis in religion and health. Back then, because we were training to the doctoral level, you had more time in your program and you could develop a specialty while you were still in theological school. I think it's harder to do now that most people train to a 3-year master's. But I always wanted to be what we now call community minister. I originally thought about becoming a pastoral counselor, and I was a member of the American Association of Pastoral Counselors, heavily trained in psychoanalytic theory and all that. But I have had a lifetime interest in hypnotism. When I was 10 years old, I saw Orman McGill perform his concert of hypnotism on the Art Linkletter show. Now, I'm probably the only one on this call who remembers the Art Linkletter show, but oh, good. Some of you do. That's good. We old farts need to stick together. Okay, so I was so enchanted that I sent away for my first book on hypnosis with quarters I saved up from my allowance. It was advertised in the back of Superman comic books. And you had this graphic of this guy who looked a lot like Orman McGill in a tuxedo, leaning over this woman lying on a couch, wearing a gown that she had obviously applied with a brush and a roller, and there were lightning bolts coming out of his fingers. I would later discover that graphic was created by Orman McGill, which is why it looked like him. The theory in the book was utter nonsense, but the techniques of how to hypnotize, how to manage suggestions, they were identical to what we teach beginners in our state licensed hypnosis schools today. So a lot of hypnotists have a certain kind of personality. And if you have that personality, you can become effective even with a fairly small amount of training. That happened to me. That book gave me enough information to make me dangerous. I really did hypnotize my grade school classmates to sing the Star-Spangled Banner whenever the teacher turned her back to the classroom to erase the blackboard. They all thought it was a hilarious goof until they discovered they couldn't stop. Then they got scared. My parents were summoned. I was thrown out of school, and my parents forbade me to have anything further to do with hypnotism. You see how well that worked. So I was interested in hypnosis all during the time at studying at Meadville and the University of Chicago. When I graduated, I was able to take a 2-year training program as a postdoc with Associated Mental Health Services in Chicago, and my instructors encouraged me to continue in hypnosis. As I said, you need to have a certain kind of personality. Now, people will often say, well, what kind of personality do you have to have? And I respond, you need to be a sneaky and deceptive individual willing to manipulate others with no moral compunction whatsoever. Now, of course, that's a joke, but there's an element of reality to it, because there is something subversive about the hypnotic process. You're paying people to smuggle, you're being paid to smuggle information into the client's unconscious mind. So I did 2 years of training, and I was, at this time, I'm originally in the UUA. You couldn't get permission to do what they called a larger ministry until you had served a parish for a period of time, usually at least 3 years. So before they would let me set up a practice in pastoral counseling or hypnotism, I had to do 3 years in the parish. So off I went to the First Universalist Church of Southold, New York, on the eastern tip of Long Island. A very interesting church in the history of Universalism. I think a lot of you may know the Universalists were heavily involved with spiritualism in the 19th century, and the Southold Church was one of the major churches in that spiritualist movement. So it was kind of a fascinating thing. At the end of the 3 years, I contacted the Department of Ministry and said, okay, I'm now ready to open up my practice, my ministry, in pastoral counseling and hypnotism. And I was told, well, we think you should go take the church at Oak Park instead. And I said, I don't want the church at Oak Park. And the person who was running the department said, I didn't ask you what you wanted. We want you to take the church in Oak Park. So it's a very different system than we have now. They made a few calls. I sent one packet to one church. I had the call to be the parish minister 6 weeks later. So that was how rapidly it was. I would stay at Oak Park for 10 years. During that time, I would become, among other things, an officer of the Chicago Psychological Association, and I would deepen my hypnotic training and networking. I began to get known as a reliable hypnotic practitioner. In about 1990, pastoral counselors became licensed as professional counselors, but in Illinois, when they made that licensing law deal, they agreed that counselors would not have hospital privileges. I wanted to work with cancer patients. I needed hospital privileges. So I changed my credentials over from pastoral counseling to the Association of Professional Chaplains and became a board-certified hospital chaplain that would allow me to have access to hospitals. Nowadays, you don't need that. Nowadays, most hospitals have a complementary and alternative medicine center, and they don't care about some of the other credentialing requirements, but back then they were needed. So I still couldn't get permission from the UUA after 10 years at Oak Park. They just wanted me to stay at Oak Park. So finally, in 1991, the General Assembly created the third track called Community Ministry. And at that point, no one could tell me I couldn't be a community minister. So I made the decision to reside at Oak Park. I gave them a 6-month window, and then I opened my first office in pastoral counseling and hypnotism. I was successful almost from day one. I had a full-time practice in my first year. I tell my own students now they need to allow a startup curve of about 3 years. First year, pay your expenses. Second year, pay a token salary. Year 3 and later, the salary begins to get more and more substantial. It's been very successful for me. I'm known throughout the world. I am an officer of the National Guild of Hypnotists, and I've always earned in 6 figures from my ministry. So that's me. I am the affiliated community minister at Countryside Church Unitarian Universalist in Palatine, Illinois, and I've been there since 1991. Staying very carefully in my lane, not interfering with the parish minister. Hillary was the minister of that congregation for 14 years, so she can perhaps back up my statement that I didn't mess around with the work of the parish minister. I just continued to build my practice. So, how do you do this? I originally realized I didn't have the first idea of how to proceed. I came upon an article in a magazine then called Family Therapy Networker, now called Psychotherapy Networker. And the article was written by a woman who was a social worker who was setting up a coaching practice and helping people start therapeutic practices. Her name was Lynn Grotsky. privatepracticesuccess.com if you want to check her out. I liked the article. She published a book. I went and got the book. I would become a private client of Lynn's, of Brodsky, for about 2 years. And she was expensive, but worth every penny, because she really taught me the basics of setting up a practice and some of the pitfalls and traps. And we're going to get to those, like we're going to be talking in a subsequent session, how to get paid. One of the major problems I have seen of people setting up fee-for-service community ministries is you undercharge for your services. And I did this too. I'm embarrassed by how little I charged my initial clientele. So I'll tell you that story later and how you figure out how much you can charge and all that. But today I want to share 2 items that Lynn came up with: the basic message and the ideal client. And this is where you start when you're setting up a practice in any form of community ministry. Your basic message is a short, clear articulation of what you do. Sometimes this is called an elevator speech. You know, you get on an elevator with someone and say, "Oh, what do you do?" Your elevator speech or your basic message is your answer. Now, you've only got about 15 seconds to give an answer. So you can't come up with this long, complicated thing held together by semicolons. It needs to be very clear, very precise. And a good basic message tells you what work you want to do, but equally tells you what you do not want to do. And that's critically important. If your basic message doesn't help you decide, I don't want to work with this person, your basic message needs to be honed. My basic message: I teach people to take control of their life through the power of their mind. That's what I tell people. I'm a hypnotist. I teach people to take control of their lives through the power of their mind. Now, what that basic message tells me is I don't want to be working with people who don't feel they need to take control of their lives. So when I get, if you were in my office, you would see a framed thing on the wall. It's a picture of the scoreboard of Wrigley Field, a big baseball stadium in Chicago. And on the scoreboard it says, Dr. Giles signs with the Cubs. I did work for the Chicago Cubs organization in my early days. And it was a good consultation. It was successful, very lucrative. I hated it, though, a very boring form of hypnosis to do. But my basic message tells me I don't want to do that kind of work. Because sports performance hypnosis is a real thing. It's a very lucrative form of hypnosis, but I don't enjoy it. So I want people who want to take control of their lives through the power of their minds. That was not what the sporting team wanted to do. So subsequently, when the PGA has been in town and the golf pros have contacted me wanting hypnotic help in perfecting their golf swing, I turn them down, even regardless of the kind of money they offer, because that doesn't match what I do. I'm not here to help people hone a skill they already have. I want people whose lives are out of control to some degree. I want people who need to be able to use their own capacity to take control. So that's my basic message. A colleague of mine, Dan Della Rosa, what he tells people is, I'm a hypnotist. I help your dreams and fantasies come true. See how short and concise that is? And people hear it, they want to hear more. That's a good basic message. So it tells you what you want to focus on, what you do not want to focus on. A mistake I've seen lots of my colleagues make is they try to do too much. Oh yeah, I work with depression and anxiety and adolescent issues, and they end up with a ministry that's a mile wide and an inch deep. And the end result is they never develop a powerful word of mouth constituency because they've spread themselves too thin. The purpose of the basic message is not just to educate others about what you do, but to ensure that you develop a practice that has sufficient depth, that it will have legs and will last over time. So that's the basic message. So I want you to be thinking right now, what would your basic message look like? And you got to be willing to make that decision. What don't I want to do? And it can be hard, especially at the beginning, to turn down work that people want you to do for them. But if it doesn't match your basic message, that's what you need to do. Because if you spread yourself too thin, you will become de-energized, and your clients can tell. And if they can tell you are de-energized, they will not come back. You cannot not communicate. Your clients know if you have your act together or if you don't. And your basic message is how you keep your act together. Okay. The second thing Lynn taught me is the ideal client. What kind of people do you want to work with? To which I respond, anyone who'll pay me. But that wasn't good enough. Ideal client image also tells you who you don't want. My ideal client is a person who has a serious problem, is willing to do a serious piece of work, and has the resources to pay for that work. Now, let me just mention it. I make most of my living doing one-on-one consultation, but I maintain 3 free clinics for cancer patients supported by hospitals and area wellness services, and I've had as many as 4 when I was a younger man. So I would treat up to 100 cancer patients a month for free. So, I mean, I'm not being a martinet by saying I will work with someone who doesn't have money. I just will not do one-on-one consultation with them. I segue them into my free clinics, but I can help anyone who comes to me. But for private clients, you got to have a serious problem. You got to understand that you have a serious problem, and you've got to be willing to work on that problem, and you have to have the resources to pay me. And this is really important. So, in June, I often get phone calls from women who are getting married in June, and they want to lose 5 or 10 pounds to look better in their wedding gown. Very common request coming into hypnotic practices, because hypnosis does work for weight control. I always turn these people down because they're not my ideal client. I refer them to my students and stuff, but they don't have a serious problem. They're not willing to do a serious piece of work. They want a quick fix, and so they're not my ideal client. Someone comes in with a severe drinking problem. Well, hypnosis can help dramatically with someone who has a substance abuse problem. So my question becomes, okay, you know you got a problem and you're willing to work on it. Can you pay me? Do you have the resources that would let you pay me? And if they don't, I don't take them on as a private client, because you can very easily, with a substance abuse client, get trapped into a codependent facilitating relationship where you're providing services to someone who's an alcoholic or a drug addict, and they don't change because they're not motivated to change, because it's not costing them anything. So my ideal client tells me who I want to work with and who I don't. Another aspect of my ideal client is I am a strong introvert. I make an investment in people. I go deep. I don't have a lot of superficial acquaintances. I don't want a client who's only going to be with me for 2 or 3 sessions. That's, as an introvert, that's work to get to know someone 2 or 3 sessions and they go away. I want deeper relationships with my clientele. That fits my temperament, and therefore that's a good thing to have in my ideal client profile. And I literally have clients who have been with me for decades. I have one guy, we just crossed, I've hypnotized him 600 times. And as he says, I'm supposed to be dead. I'm not. I'm not stopping this. But that's the kind of deep relationships I want to have. And that's why my ideal client is a person who knows they got a serious problem, willing to work on that problem, and prepared to pay for that work. So I want you to be thinking now, who is your ideal client? Who do you want to work with? What would make you feel fulfilled as a community minister, and what wouldn't? And it's important as you approach the basic message and the ideal client that you have in mind it needs to say what you won't do just as much as what you will do. Okay, that's all I have by way of didactics. I'm going to go around you as you are on my screen. When I call on you, would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your situation? Do you have a ministry? Are you putting one up? And so on. So Hillary, you're first on my screen, so you get to go first.
Okay. I'm Hillary Krivchenya. I'm a retired parish minister. I am trained in a number of different things, including spiritual direction and hypnosis. And I'm starting up my practice after completing the program at Meadville Lombard Theological School, which is where I also went to theological school. And my practice is starting to be exciting to me. I haven't done a tremendous amount of outreach yet, but I was fairly clear in myself about the sorts of people that I wanted to see, and they're starting to appear strangely. They're not appearing strangely, but they're strange that they're appearing. Or anyway, never mind. I've had one client who's come to see me in person, and that was probably the most exciting for me, to have a face-to-face session with somebody. But my other clients have been on Zoom, and that's still pretty damn cool. So I have many different skills that I'm balancing and trying to figure out how to describe myself in a short phrase. Has always been a challenge, but is particularly a challenge in this case. And I'm in Southeast Ohio, where probably nobody's interested in the things that I do, but strangely enough, they're appearing.
You know, actually, at this point, most hypnotists, the majority are working practices online. I'm about 50-50. And most spiritual directors are doing the same. My wife, Lindsay, who you know, has a relationship with her spiritual director going back 15 years, and they meet entirely online. So I mean, there's a lot. The Zoom technology has really freed us up a lot in what we want to do. I just want to mention, if you're going to do an online practice, I do encourage you to have the proper equipment and proper internet connections. I'm on a fiber optic connection, so it's as fast as allowed. I'm using a webcam that puts the lens right on my screen. It's not above the screen, it's right on my screen. So as I look at you, I'm looking at the lens. This creates more intimacy. This is a professionally produced digital background that I use for all of my video work. So you want to have a polished and professional presentation of that. It's not that hard to do anymore. What would you say the greatest problem you're facing in your ministry, Hillary, is?
I would say that the greatest problem is figuring out exactly where to do my outreach. But yeah, that I would say that's
Okay.
the greatest.
We have a
Um,
session coming up in marketing in the 21st century, and that will directly address that concern.
well, and I think also it has to do with reaching out in the places where you will find the clients that you want. And there are some, I love the Unitarian Universalist community, but that's not the only place that I want to be serving people. It's not even the primary place necessarily that I want to be serving people. So figuring out how to do that is something I'm eager to learn more about.
Great. Well, we'll see if we can help you with that going forward. Thank you. Okay, Jacqueline, unmute yourself.
Yes, so I'm currently at the Chaplaincy Institute getting a certificate in spiritual direction. And I obviously want a spiritual direction practice and haven't got a clue as to how to go about that. But I'm also, I mean, it's funny you should say I'm 73 and I'm I'm learning, I'm taking a course currently, and I don't know how new it is, but there's going to be something coming out from ACPE to be a training certificate to be a spiritual guide in helping people in psychedelic chaplaincy. And it's brand new in my head. So I'm thinking, oh, I wonder if that would broaden my scope if I included that training to be a guide. And I'm just bad. I'm sort of investigating it right now. And
You're woodshedding it. That's fine. Dreaming like that is a good thing. What state are you in?
I'm in Florida, actually.
Okay. Psychedelic therapy is not legal in Florida.
I know.
The
But I
only
was
state
thinking,
is Oregon.
so I was thinking, well, and I think things might change since there's this renaissance going on now, but God only knows how long that will take to get to me. But I'm thinking that I may have spiritual direction clients who are undergoing that.
Mhm.
And, because there's this international listserv that I could get on. And, I'd want to know how, not necessarily how to guide them through the trip, but how to support them with what they're doing.
Or help them
So,
process the experience afterwards and
exactly.
internalize, and that you could lawfully do, no matter where they are.
Right. So I'm just broadening the scope of the spiritual direction, but um, there the training that I'm receiving from the Institute says that the people that are going to be coming to me do not have a problem. So when you were talking about, you have to recognize you have a problem and be committed to me helping you with that. I have a feeling that that's not going to be what I'm going to be doing
Okay. Your
because,
basic message wouldn't be the same as mine
right. And,
because you're not the
but
same as me. So,
right. But and I'm not saying that it is, but what I'm saying is that problem oriented thinking
mhm.
is probably not going to be the basis of my ministry, but it's going to be how can I accompany you to know your spiritual self more than you do now and all of that. So I think I know what kind of client I would get, but I appreciated the the basic message thing because I can tend to be very very wordy, so reeling it in was good advice. So
Absolutely.
so I'm due to graduate from the program, and I will be an ordained interfaith minister as well in October. And I know that I have to do a practicum and I have to be supervised. So it's probably going to be about a year and a half before I can even look at getting a client.
Okay, so but you can start honing your basic message now and decide how you want to present what you want to do. I mean, I'm problem oriented. People come to me with an issue. I do a lot of work with the cancer community, but there are community ministers doing things about unfolding, helping you deepen your spirituality. I've been in spiritual direction my entire career with at one point a Buddhist monk from the Theravada tradition. I did 12 years with a Franciscan priest. I think I worried him. But you know, and that wasn't problem oriented, that was deepening. So your basic message might be, I help people deepen their relationship to God or to their inner self. So work on that, perfect it, hone it. You've got time. And the subsequent workshop or program coming up on corporate structures, you might want to take a look at that material, because one of the things you're going to have to worry about if you're doing psychedelic anything is staying on the right side of the law.
Okay.
And you do not want to find yourself holding a cease and desist order from the Department of Medicine in your state. And you could easily get there. The psychiatrists, just as they tried during the 90s and the aughts to prevent anyone from doing hypnosis by them, except for them, I was actually the person who would travel around the country to fight that on the board of the guild. They're now trying to do this with psychedelic therapy, ketamine therapy, psilocybin, and so on. So you're going to have built-in opposition of a moneyed, organized group. So you need to be very careful. We'll cover that at that time.
Okay.
The
I think that my biggest worry is like, how do I get clients?
well, that's coming up next time. Marketing 21st Century. Okay, Cecilia or Celia.
One C will do.
Okay.
Well, I'm confused most of the time because I'm 76. Okay, I've done a whole lot of work in corporations, doing a whole lot of organization development work, diversity work. I'm a consultant. I'm also a coach. And I went to divinity school, not try to become a preacher, try to add a dimension. So I'm trained as a Gestalt practitioner. Means we train to see whole system all the time. So I'm adding the spiritual dimension just so I could be in front of people that they could feel whole around me. So most of the time when people come to me, they want somebody to listen to. So that's what I offer. I offer empathetic listening, and I help them sort out whatever's going on in them by listening to them. And in order to do that, I have to be fully present. I've been doing that for a long time, but here's the issue. I'm a UU, okay? I'm in my own I'm a congregation member. I did a whole lot of things for my own members for free. Now you're talking about charging people. I don't think I could do that with these members. I need to go somewhere else to charge money. We could talk about that. I don't know how
We'll
to,
talk about that at the proper time. But
yeah,
yes, it is
I
a
don't know how to
struggle.
move it from all of a sudden I'm volunteer to all of a sudden I needed to charge money. Only a few people actually asked me, should they pay me? Majority of people never even say that because they assume that you're supposed to just give it to them for free. So,
Yeah, it was a problem. You see, parish ministers, especially, or parish-based laity, are trained to give away what they know.
yeah, yeah.
And
I'm not a parish. I'm not a congregational minister.
you are
Okay.
a lay member of a congregation,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
people expect that for free. So
yeah,
moving from free to paid is a difficult mental shift. It was very hard for me.
Yeah.
Um, Lynn, my consultant that I work with, at one point we're talking about this. He says, "You're actually creating anxiety in the minds of your client because what the services provided are so much greater than payment being taken that they feel weird about it."
Yeah. Mhm.
So she said, "For all new clients, double your rate." What? Double your rate? Because my deal with her is I had to do what she said, or she fired me.
I I have
Um,
no problem charging people, okay? I come from corporations, all
right.
right?
Okay.
Charging money is the right. You have to let people know what you're worth. If you don't charge enough, they don't think you're worthy of it.
Exactly.
So I have no problem doing that, but I'm got stuck in this place because I love my congregation. I gave it away a lot. Well, not only that, one other thing, this is what you talk about. You have to be so careful not to get into the lane of your congregation minister's work. I'm already at that edge
You
now.
got to stay in your lane. Yeah.
Yeah.
And your
And
basic message should make that boundary clear.
I'm gonna try to not do anything in my own congregation
Okay.
anymore.
You can
I think
certainly do
that's
that.
the only way to make it clear. Because I'm a very powerful presence. I can't help it. I'm 76. I don't give a shit. I really don't apologize, so I work so hard for my presence to show up because I had so many scars, right? So you show up, be who you are. But then you run into a minister who needs to have his domain. I
Mhm.
totally understand this. So
You
so
can
I
do
gotta
that.
figure it, yeah.
If you'll
I
figure it
gotta
out.
figure out a way to
You
move
can do
somewhere else.
you can do this. Um, the I originally joined Countryside Church because it's 45 minutes away, and I didn't want to meet people on Sunday morning who are my client. But I've been there so long now that's gone away. I do have clients in the church member, but you put it out entirely. You want what I do, you pay for it. This is not an included service in your membership
Yeah.
to the church. And you can find ways to do this. So think about how you're going to do that. Hillary, you got a hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm in the process of right now of writing a covenant with the local settled minister, in order to do precisely that defining of, whose lane is what. And I think that would be a really fruitful conversation for those of us in spiritual direction, but also any kinds of community ministry. And just full disclosure, I I learned how to write those sorts of agreements because Scott was the community minister in my congregation when I was in Palatine, and we had a beautiful covenant. And I've been able to learn a great deal from that relationship and the covenant that we had. So I think it's really possible to work in your congregation and to have a clean relationship with the minister, and reassure the minister at the same time, and still have your own lane.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, I want to learn that because it's
We will.
very,
We'll cover it.
very tentative right now.
We'll cover it. When I doubled my rate, what happened? My clientele, I was anticipating they would argue with me. They said, "Oh, thank God. This is really deserved." I had no trouble at all. And then Lynn said, "Double it again." And when I doubled it again, my practice increased 30%.
Mhm.
If you're charging more for it, people value it. If you're not
Mhm.
charging adequately, people think it isn't worth anything. Okay, come up here. All right, Lisa Lake, unmute yourself. There you go.
Yeah, um, at this point, I kind of forgot what we're being asked, but
Where are you?
I
What
think
kind of
kind of like
ministry are you
why
trying to
why
do?
we're here, what we're Yeah, so funny, someone asked me the other day this question, and I said, what I really would like to do is be a shit stirrer. And by that meaning, be like a guest speaker at small towns where I go in and I give a really controversial um, sermon um, and kind of stir the shit, and then like let them work that out, and then like maybe come back a couple of weeks later and talk about how things went. But beyond that, what I am trained for is, am I? I'm I'm 56, and um, me and my wife are lucky to not owe anything except for um, some money on our home paid off yet, but we don't owe anything on anything. And I just really couldn't imagine myself getting 70 to $90,000 in debt to go get a master's degree from a theology school, just so that I could not even be a parish minister, but do some other stuff. And so I ended up doing a community ministry certification and a spiritual direction certification through Cherry Hill Seminary, which is a pagan seminary, and was ordained through the community ministry certification program there. And I'm also doing a community ministry certification program through Meadville Lombard to kind of get like a UU perspective. I found that the Meadville's program is very UU specific, whereas the pagan program I took um, and am now in supervision for is was very between the community ministry certification and the spiritual direction certification. Basically, I covered all of um, what would have been the classes for their magisterial program.
Hmm.
Um, so,
Well, it sounds interesting. I'm going to suggest you find
but
a different
um,
title than shit stirrer, but change agent might change
I
agent
like
might
that
work
thought.
well.
Well, I actually started writing a Substack. I actually started writing a Substack titled "Blue in a Red State," because I'm currently living in southern Utah, um, where I have the previous years been in Portland for 12 years, and I'm only here temporarily. So um, right now, I kind of am being a shit stir and kind of uh, getting stuff, asking questions and doing things in the local UU fellowship of 35 people. Um, like what what are you guys really doing? Are you here hiding out, or are you going to take part in some of the social justice that you usually stand for? So
Mhm.
um, I think I think my theology is a very social justice activist um, theology, and I would love to find some way that I could incorporate that in my ministry and what I'm doing without being uh, the minister of a church.
You certainly can. A number of the social justice ministers I've worked with who want to go into community ministry have set themselves up in practices of government relations, which is a fancy term for being a lobbyist. There is no training program you need to have. Someone has to show you how to do it. but there are lots of nonprofits who'd be happy to take you on for a free internship for 3 months or 6 months and show you the basics. I'm a lobbyist in 22 states. And you could have a bread and butter client list of people who are paying you that's how you earn your living, and then you have your list of the causes you believe in that you want to help, but it's the same technology both ways. So consider that. Work on your basic message and decide that. But please, don't do shit, sir. or keep that off to the side somehow. Change agent, government relations specialist, political operative, they all sound good, but work on it. Okay, Linda, you're up next.
Hey, so my name's Linda Seligman, and I live in North Carolina. And I am a retired second grade teacher, 71, and I went to Upaya Buddhist Center, got my 48 graduate hour degree in Buddhist chaplaincy. And I am a certified chaplain, hospital chaplain, and I'm hyphenated, UU Buddhist. And I'm also going to the Chaplaincy Institute in Berkeley for spiritual direction and to be a lay minister. So, and I'm 71. So I have a ways to go before I do that. But I wanted to start getting an idea of the lay of the land so I can start aiming myself that way, and not having to do that at the last minute. So I'm interested in learning from all of you folks. And I was thinking, for me, like to help people deepen their spirituality in a secular world, because that tends to be my strong point, is especially being here in the South. There are a lot of diehard Southern Baptists have some interesting ways of looking at the world, and other people around them are like, I don't do that, and I don't know how to reframe what's going on for me given my upbringing and the people I know. Like, how do I do this? So that's been something that I've been very interested in.
Okay, fantastic. I think we'll be able to give you a fair amount of help. Lincoln, do you want to get involved in this?
Yes, I do. Hi, I'm Lincoln Statler. I am the current president of UUSCM. I am a Master's of Arts in Social Change graduate from Stark King School for the Ministry, and I currently work as a hospital chaplain here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I think if I wanted to make concise is I help people on the margins of society deal with their religious trauma, pain, and guilt, and help them move forward in life.
That's a good one. Of course, you're working for an institution, so you're not doing a fee for service. But still, who would your ideal client be?
My ideal client would be people between the ages of 20 and 45 who are looking to liberate themselves from the pain and trauma that they were raised with.
That sounds good. That's clear. That makes it, and also says who you wouldn't want to work with, and that is critically important because you're not going to be able to do everything. You want to avoid spreading yourself thin, because if you do that, your clients are going to know and they're going to go away. I've seen that happen over and over and over again. So the two things to take away here: basic message, ideal client. A fun exercise with the ideal client is to ask yourself, well, who's my ideal client now? Not what I want, but of the people I'm working with, what are they like? And that can be very illuminating. One of my students said, when she did this, I said, well, I guess my ideal client are recently divorced women who can't afford to pay me. Well, that was insightful, isn't it? And Do you see some problems with that particular ideal client articulation? I mean, the reality is if you're setting up a fee-for-service ministry, getting paid has to be an important consideration or you're not going to be there for anyone. I have a history of being somewhat critical of Meadville, my alma mater, that they train community ministers without really teaching them the nuts and bolts and difficulties in marketing and so on. And the problem is people come out of these programs and they don't have a clue how to go about getting clients. And the ideal client gives you specificity, and that's what you want to seek. Who do you want to work with in order to have a sustainable community ministry? I mean, if your ideal clients are recently divorced women who can't afford to pay you, that is not sustainable. It might be something that you care about. You may want to have an aspect where you give free or low-cost services to such people. But your business model has to be that you get paid, and you get paid enough that you have a lifestyle that you're happy with. Because if you're not, if you're feeling that you're being taken advantage of, if you feel that you're being abused, if you're living a hand-to-mouth existence, you will transmit that information to your client, and they will lose trust in you. You have to be someone your client wants to pay. And so that question, how are you going to get paid? One of my more recent ministers who I work with, you know, he had a really great concept of a community ministry based upon role-playing games. I really liked it. But he couldn't figure out how you'd monetize that. And you've got to ask yourself, if you're setting up a fee-for-service ministry, how am I going to monetize this? And all this is a way of introducing next month's topic, which is marketing in the 21st century. And oh my God, has it changed over the arc of my career. When I got started, I took a course in how to design a Yellow Pages ad. I mean, do anyone even remember the Yellow Pages? But, that doesn't work anymore. There are other things you have to do, and we will cover those next month. Hey, we're at the end of our hour. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I hope you found this helpful. Do feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to put in the chat my email, and feel free to use that if you have any subsequent questions. And I'll look forward to seeing you, I hope, next month. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Scott.
you, Scott. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.